Right, we've had better nights, let's be honest, but fear not, let's get down and dirty and cover the shambles that was last night. Okay, so on today's video, we are going to look back at last night's 3-1 defeat at home to Bodo Glimt, and then hopefully draw a line under that match. And tomorrow, we will start to look ahead to the Dundee game, where we're certainly hoping for a reaction. For some daft reason, I rewatched last night's game earlier today. Just put myself through that pain, just to see if I had any different thoughts. I just thought Celtic just weren't at it, and that could basically be the video for today. I could just come on, 90 seconds and say Celtic just weren't at it. We have, nights like that. Every team in every sport will have off days and we move on. But obviously we have to flesh out a little bit more. But I just felt that, we lacked the intensity all night. We didn't get at Bodo Glimt enough. That real nastiness and that, desire and intensity that we've had basically since coming back from the international break, that's seen us beat Rangers, that's seen us score last-minute goal against Dundee United, even when we weren't great, and get big away wins at Tynecastle and Pittodrie in recent weeks. It just wasn't there at all last night. I think we have to pay credit to Bodo Glimt. They were really good, one of the better sides that have come to Celtic Park in recent years, and possibly we underestimated them. I certainly didn't expect them to be as good as they were last night, but I'm starting to blabber on already. So what we're going to do is bring in some of your comments from the live stream last night. That should give me a kind of focal point to go on my daft crusades from. So we're starting with Gezabel. First thing to say is that Bodo are a top side. Forget the wee Norwegian tag. Remember Bodo 6, Roma 1. Big, physical, skillful, well organised, tactically savvy. We were simply beaten by a better team with better ideas. Thanks to them, we now know we have some way to go to reach the required European standard. Talk of Celtic going far and even winning the competition from some was downright embarrassing. Let's concentrate on winning the league this season, and hopefully Ange can further improve and strengthen the squad in the summer. I definitely was surprised by how good Glimt were last night. I thought they would struggle after losing 4 or 5 key players in the summer, but it seems like that doesn't affect them too much. It seems like they just have, it seems like they have a brilliant manager there. We actually, on the way back from Celtic Park into town last night, bumped into quite a few Glimt fans, really nice guys, and I asked them, what's the secret to how good you've become? And they all said it was the manager, Knutson. He's just the driving force behind the club. There's certain similarities with Celtic, but you probably just saw a team that, even though they had a number of new players, in general, they had a core of a team that was far more used to playing that way than this Celtic team are. For as good as we've been, we're still only, February? We're like 7 or 8 months into this Ange project. Bodo Glimt have been doing this for years, and the core of that squad, I think, are well used to doing this, even on the European stage. They're far more astute in Europe than this Celtic team are at the moment. I think, comparing them to teams we've played already this season, they were far better than a team like Ferencváros, and I thought they would be quite similar to Ferencváros. So that was a bit of a surprise. Having said all that, though, I think Celtic can still beat this side next week if we find our normal/top level. I think we had enough opportunities last night, and more so got into enough good areas last night to know that if we can bring that killer final ball and that clinical edge, then I think there will be opportunities for us next week. I certainly don't think the tie is over. Moving on, and Angel-like, Glimt played Angeball better than we did. They were a good team. They looked a lot better than us on the night. When I saw Rogic in the team with O'Reilly, I was shocked. I think it's fair to say that Ange and his players have learned from setbacks so far this season. Now, Ange personally has had a few in matches. I think the big one that people talk about was at Ibrox when he played Kyogo wide left. And then after that, he didn't really play Kyogo wide left in any big games. It was always Kyogo through the middle. So he learned his lesson there and Celtic benefited. And I think the players learned a lot from that 4-0 drubbing against Leverkusen in the Europa League. And we obviously we're still on an incredible domestic unbeaten run since that match. So I think that was a turning point. So it's all about what we learn from last night and what's the lesson Ange learns. And I've seen a lot of people suggesting that this whole O'Reilly and Rogic in the same team might be the lesson that Ange learns. Possibly. I think leaving Hatate out last night was a mistake because I just think Hatate has an engine that O'Reilly and Rogic don't. Now, O'Reilly actually I thought had a decent game and worked hard last night. Rogic had a poor game. But I just think Hatate offers us something different in that midfield, real energy. And I think against such an energetic team like Bodo Glimt last night, it would have been good to have him in the team. I certainly think he'll be in the starting 11 for the second leg. But in terms of, the overall picture and Rogic and O'Reilly not being able to play in the same midfield, I think it's too early to say that they can't. I know that's like a common theme. People think, that's the one and only time. But it's all about the lessons we learned from last night. Celtic will analyse the game, Ange and his players. And I think we'll see a very different Celtic in a week's time in the return leg. Now moving on, and Bo Vass, they were so well organised. To attack like they did, while always being so compact, was impressive. I think they forced Celtic players to be quiet. Having said that, Rogic was awful and not in the game. I'd have made a change at half-time or even 30 minutes. Celtic haven't been challenged like that in a long time in terms of pressing and pressure. Definitely weren't as up for it as they needed to be. The next leg will be telling, as now the players have an incentive for payback and to prove themselves. I agree that the changes were possibly made a little bit too late last night. I mean, I think 30 minutes is a little bit extreme, but at half-time I would have looked to get Hatate on and potentially Giakoumakis as well. I felt we were more of a threat later on in the game when we did go two up top. We had Maida and Giakoumakis up front for a spell later on in that game. And again, it'll be interesting to see if Ange, takes something from that in the return leg. I felt as much as a lot of players underperformed last night, I felt that our whole issue was there was more to it than that. I think our tactics were just kind of off last night, and Bodo Glimt just exploited them. It just seemed like they always had a lot more space, on the ball, and when they were able to play out through the press, which wasn't great last night, then we were in trouble. So I just wonder if Ange will change, make a big change next week. I don't know if he's ever really played two up front from the start in a match, or whether he might feel he needs to do something like that next week, but something clearly has to change, and I don't think it's just individual performances. I thought our players looked really unsettled last night, and I thought our passing was poor as a result. Now moving on, David Cassidy, we were off the ball with our final third pass, not as sharp, just what we were saying. The final product wasn't the norm for us either, and the ability of our players wasn't as high in quality as normal. I really thought O'Reilly had a brilliant game, very aware and was really creative. He really stood out, I agree. I thought McGregor was solid too, showed a good captain's performance, hunting balls down and trying to push the players on. It's just a shame other parts of our game didn't shine through. Still have hope we could come through if only we improve our final ball and shots. It was just a real nearly night last night, and I think we did, as I say, get into some good areas in the match, but it was just that final ball was just not quite there. There was, the one late on in the game with Jota for Giakoumakis was just the perfect example of that. There was one in the first half as well. In fact, Abada had a few in the first half. One for Maida, a kind of slide rule pass, and it was cut out by the defender. And he had a couple of crosses where it was just going into the keeper's arms, where usually Abada would, find someone with it. So it was just one of those nights where they seemed to get on the end of everything and we couldn't get on the end of anything. I agree with your point on O'Reilly. I thought he was decent. He was perhaps the only Celtic player who really pressed the game and showed that desire to win the ball back. But having said that, I felt even his final ball at times was poor, often, finding a yellow shirt. McGregor I thought was okay. He wasn't the worst player out there, but certainly he'll have far better games for us. And as I say, for next week, 2 goals is nothing, really. I've heard a lot of people saying, if we go over there and get an early goal, it makes it interesting. it's not even an early goal we need. We just need to find the first goal at some stage in the match. If that comes, in the second half, 60 minutes, something like that, then you only need to find one more. So I don't think the tie is over at all. I think there's a long way to go, and I think Celtic will get chances over there. And it's all about just taking those opportunities, really taking care with that final ball and finding that clinical edge. Moving on, Bandy got game and David McGonigal both in with similar shouts here. Bandy saying fans need to chill out. One loss and acting like it's a disaster. Success isn't a straight line upward. And David saying the overreaction from our fan base has been ridiculous. Now, I have kind of not really been on social media too much. I was at the game last night, got back about 1 o'clock, went to sleep, and I'm recording this on Friday morning. So I've actually not seen a hell of a lot of reaction. I feel like we should be past this all or nothing stage with Celtic. We've had a few setbacks this season. Most of them have seemed to arrive when we've not really been expecting them. And for me, it's all just about the reaction now. The good thing is that we will find out about that reaction very soon, like 48 hours time, less than that. And the players will be delighted about that. They've not got long to wait to kind of put things right on Sunday with a big victory. In terms of fans, needing to chill out, yeah, I personally feel, and I know the other guys at the channel just feel that last night was just disappointing, but you can have disappointing results without, a huge inquest and, any major statements about players being flops and Ange not having a clue. You have disappointing results. Celtic hadn't lost a match since November before this. I mean, it's been a long time since Celtic lost a match in any competition. So last night, disappointing, sure, but let's look at the bigger picture now. It's all about how we respond. Matthew Rossi also wanted to speak about supporters, but supporters at the game. Maybe cover the amount of supporters who walked out after 80 minutes, Hamish. Knowing how Ange likes to play to the final whistle and considering Bodo were likely to tire, being in pre-season, also the fact we needed the support for goals to make the second leg a little less difficult. Yeah, I was going to mention this on last night's stream, but I actually forgot. I did find the mass exodus after the third Bodo Glimt goal a little bit disappointing last night. I just maybe felt the team deserved a little bit better. If it had been in a second leg where the goal had gone in to kill the tie off, I could maybe understand it to an extent. But I just felt there's a long, long way to go in the tie, and there still is, to be honest. And yeah, I found that a little bit disappointing when I saw so many people heading for the exit doors when that third goal went in. But people pay their money. I'm certainly not going to tell people how they should behave at the football, but that's just my own personal opinion. In terms of Ange, really not got a great deal to report from last night. I saw some people, there was a few people in the comments as well, saying that they disagreed with his post-match comments. Personally, I didn't find much to actually disagree with, for the reason that I don't think he actually said a hell of a lot. He thought we controlled the game, and our performance was, quote, okay. He said that we weren't clinical enough. But of course, Ange was very much saying that it's just half time in the tie and there's a long, long way to go. That's kind of what I mean. He was just saying what you would expect. Maybe it was the stuff about controlling the game that people disagreed with. Having watched the game, yeah, I think Celtic have controlled games more in the past. But, we had more of the possession. We had far more shots last night. I do think that as much as Bodo Glimt deserved their victory, Celtic did have moments in that game, and that's what still gives me hope for next week. I thought Callum McGregor's comments were a little bit more interesting. He was keen to point out that Celtic got into some good areas outside the box last night, and he reckons there's a chance for us next week if we can tidy up on that. He mentioned concentration a few times in his various interviews, and he also felt that there was a naivety from Celtic last night. I thought McGregor actually spoke really well after the game. I think the players will still fancy this game next week. Joe Hart was actually pretty animated after the game when he was walking round. He was kind of geeing the fans up a little bit. So I think it's clear that the players feel they didn't do themselves justice last night, and I think we'll see a big reaction from the players next week. But is it going to be enough of a reaction to go over to Norway, the north of Norway, and get a 2-goal win that we need? And that's just to take it to extra time. It's a real mountain we've got to climb, but I'll back this Celtic team under Ange to do anything. They've proven me wrong already this season on a number of occasions, so I certainly won't be writing them off. Just to tie up a few other things, a few people asking about away goals in the comments last night. For a start, what have you been doing for the last year? But also, they're no longer a thing in European football. UEFA scrapped them, I think, in the summer. So that means that a 2-0 win next week would take it to extra time. The return leg is next Thursday. It's one of UEFA's early kickoffs, so it's a 5:45pm kickoff. That's in Scottish time. Final comment on last night. I thought the pre-match display from the North Curve was really good. It's just a shame that was basically as good as the night got. It always seems that whenever you get an amazing display, the performance doesn't quite match up. But hey-ho, we move on. That's really all I've got to say about last night's match. It's been a tough video to do because for all the chat, I just think it was an off night for Celtic, and it's all about the reaction now. In general this season, the reactions we've got from the team after disappointing results have been really good, and we just need to see that on Sunday. It's another huge game against Dundee, another chance to tick off, another match and stay at the top of the league. There's a fair chance we go into the game in second place, so that brings, a new pressure the team haven't really faced too often this season as we aim to go back to the top of the table. We'll be building ahead to that one tomorrow. Don't forget to give us a wee subscribe as well on the channel. We really do appreciate you tuning in for this video. It's been a bit of a weird one to do. We'll speak to you tomorrow.